What's up, everybody? Welcome into Shout, a Buffalo football podcast live from St. John Fisher University. We're back in the dorms. Ryan is still in town. You're getting 3 straight shows of Matt and Ryan in the dorm. Yesterday, the dad jokes were on full display. And listen, I got a little pushback. Like, I should be a little bit more accepting of the dad jokes. So I got to own that. I think we're making progress. But if I were to accept the dad jokes 100%, we would lose the bit. And the bit is timeout for dad jokes is always a pretty funny bit.
I've always enjoyed that, getting kicked off the screen because I'm usually just laughing as I'm not on there. It's a great bit. It always works out really well.
Just realized, excuse the suitcase in the background. We're getting, this is getaway day. The day 3 of Bills training camp here at St. John Fisher, off tomorrow. So we'll head back to Buffalo. You're staying for the weekend, which will be good. A lot to get into today. Some stuff that you might not have even gotten on the insider text line. I think I was going to get to the one-on-ones a little bit later. Did you send those out?
I did not.
All right. No. So we'll talk a little bit about those because there were some really impressive performances in there. We'll get to that as well. I want to start off with a big defensive performance. I think our first 2 are going to be defensive performances. But before we get there, we are brought to you by Amtrak. Amtrak's Empire Service offers frequent departures daily from Niagara Falls, Buffalo, all the way to New York City. Stops include Rochester, Syracuse, Utica, Schenectady, Albany, Hudson, Poughkeepsie, Rhine Cliff, and more. Comfort is awesome on Amtrak. No middle seats, plenty of legroom, including reclining seats. There's ease of travel. You get free Wi-Fi, no baggage fees either. Lots of discounts offered. Riding Amtrak is an experience like no other, a fun and relaxing way to get to your destination. All right, we're going to start with Taylor Rapp today. What a day. And listen, 3 interceptions for Taylor Rapp in all 3 different facets of practice. So you have 7-on-7 teamwork. You have an 11-on-11 when things get ratcheted up a little bit. And then 1-on-1s when the safeties were going against the tight ends at the end of practice. He gets 1 interception in each phase of practice. And the most impressive one was the first one because 7-on-7, it is really put you out on an island a lot of times with who you're responsible for. I think the intended target was Elijah Moore on the left sideline, and Taylor Rapp comes flying into the play, not only makes the impressive catch, but keeps his feet in bounds. You were at tre'davious White, and we used this quote in our story. He called him a bleeping baller, and he played like it today. He was absolutely electric, making big-time plays, and defensive coordinator Bobby Babbage said the one thing that he hasn't been happy with through the first 2 days, not enough takeaways. Well, he got 3 today out of Taylor Rapp.
Yeah, Bobby Babbage had to be smiling as he sat with us at the pre-practice press conference. He was wearing a hat that said 3 words, take it away. So that's the message for the defense. You need to keep building off of the turnovers from 1 year ago. Wasn't happy with just 1 turnover, as he put it, entering day 3. And Taylor Rapp must have been able to hear those words from afar because he was a man possessed today. First interception was unbelievable along the sidelines, getting the feed in, as you mentioned. Second one was kind of a gimme on a high pass, but he was all over the field today, and he's become a real leader for this team. It's been fun to watch him, Matt, because he started out as a reserve behind Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, and the Bills liked him enough in that role to re-sign him, and now he's really taken on a huge leadership role, and he's just such a key part to this defense as well.
I had a quick chat with Cole Bishop after practice today, and nothing crazy, just a 2-minute check-in with him. Bobby Babbage was talking about how much the thing that he's noticed the most about his growth this year has been the, maybe taking his mind off the anxiety of expectations and allowing him to really settle in and focus more on the day-to-day, the singular moments. I thought Babbage was actually really interesting today, talking about how they take every single moment in practice, in a game. It doesn't matter what, in a meeting, just that moment, and live in that moment. Because if you start planning down the road, like, what am I going to do in practice later today when you're in a meeting? Or what am I going to do when I get my first opportunity in a preseason game or a regular season game? You can almost cloud your head with all the stuff that you can't really control, or it's not right in front of you yet. So I think focusing in on that, and Bishop said to me today, Taylor Rapp has been a big constant for him. They spent a lot of time in the offseason working together, training together. He's a vet that's been in this league. Tre'davious White, an all-pro, was watching him when he was in LA before he ever got to Buffalo. And I think that just that calming presence in the room is going to be huge for Cole Bishop.
Yeah, you need that kind of leadership, and that's exactly what Rapp brings to the table. And we've known last year, especially in his first role as a starter in Buffalo, that he can make big plays for this defense. It comes down to his health. He plays a very physical brand and style of football, but when he is on the field, he's constantly making plays, and that was on display today.
Thank you so much for watching across all 3 platforms live. You can find us, as always, on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your audio podcasts, if that's the way to go. We brought up Tre'davious White there, and it was – I don't even want to call it an up and down day, because like when you're going, especially without pads on, there's going to be plays that don't go your way. We don't want to overreact to every single thing. And we're going to talk about Keon Coleman later in this episode as well. It feels like there's a conversation around the start of camp. Listen, we're here, we're reporting on every single play, and I think every play takes on a life of its own sometimes, and that can be challenging. I don't think that's the way to approach this. I think it's more about seeing the ebbs and flows and having the ebbs and flows. Like if you have 3 straight days where it's constantly making mistakes, I think that's more newsworthy than anything else. What we saw from Tre White today was a big-time competitive play. Tell them about that one.
Yeah, big-time competitive play from Tre White. It looked like I don't want to say an easy completion, but it's a completion we've seen so many times, from Josh Allen to Khalil Shakir. Allen went back, found him across the middle of the field, delivered a very catchable pass. Shakir goes up, looks like he's going to haul it in, and lo and behold, who comes in at the last second? Tre White gets his hand on the ball, breaks it up, celebrates with his teammates. The teammates are fired up for him. You know, the big message today was Tre White is on a mission. That's what Bobby Babich said. We asked him about it post-practice. He said, you know, the mission's the same. It hasn't changed. It's about competing. It's about coming in here. He talked about having a full off season where he didn't have to worry about rehabbing from a lower body injury and how important that was to him. He doesn't want people to sleep on him in terms of possibly winning this cornerback job opposite Christian Benford. And when plays like that take place, it goes a long way. I thought he had tight coverage all day long, really impressive coverage. So a really nice day for Tre White here in his return to the Bills.
That's important for this defensive room. It's important for Maxwell Hairston too, and Christian Benford, because you're probably not getting through a 17-game schedule. Even if that ends up being your starting duo, you are going to need depth in that room. And I think a healthy Tre'davious White playing at this level is something that this cornerback room just didn't have last year in Kyer Elam. And listen, the problem for Jamarcus Ingram is he's just one of those guys that asked him to play multiple roles. We're going to talk about Cam Lewis later in the show. Had an absolutely awesome practice today. Like, again, reminding you why, like, you might be writing Jordan Hancock in pencil, but you got to slow your roll there. I think Cam Lewis is a valuable piece in this defensive secondary. We'll get more on him later. But in terms of Tre'davious White, at the very least, he provides you with critical depth. But to your point, I think he's making strides to compete for that job, and maybe makes them feel a little bit better about, okay, we could throw Tre White out there week 1. You know, the matchup is specific. He knows a lot about the Baltimore Ravens after being in that locker room last year. There was one play where he was really mad at himself, and it was the Keon Coleman touchdown. He goes for 60 yards. Really impressive. The Bills shared it out on their social media platforms. He gets down with the play, and I think he lost his footing a little bit. Keon ran away from him. He kind of like threw his hand down on the grass. I'm not dinging him too much for that. He had, to your point, pretty good coverage, and it's one of those plays where the receivers are going to make plays too. It's about how you respond to that. And to your point, I thought he was super competitive in the one-on-ones. He lost a rep or two, but for the most part, it was a really competitive practice where you come back and you look at the film, and him and Bobby Babich and Joe Dana and Jamal Adai. There's a lot of people in that Bills defensive room that are going to be really impressed with Tre's day.
Yeah, from my perspective, it was a clear slip on his part. He was there. He had good coverage up until that point. So things like that happen, especially when we had rain in the forecast today a few times, can create some slippery conditions. But, I'll be the first to admit, through 3 days, I was way too low on Tre White. After they signed him, I thought this is just a depth piece, someone coming in to compete for a roster spot. He's definitely gone up my rankings quite a bit in terms of what he's done so far. Spoke glowingly about Max Hairston, about giving him nuggets and of wisdom, so to speak. He did mention their games are a little bit different, but he's also willing to take on that mentor role and has done so. blown away with what, Christian Benford says. He's the same guy that he knew in 2022, but he's just, now other people are recognizing he's one of the best cornerbacks in this league. So he's happy to be back. He's playing really well. There's a lot of really positives about Tre White.
I want to get to some offensive takeaways today. I thought Elijah Moore, continues to play well and pop as well. But let's stay on the defense for a second. Somebody we didn't get to yesterday was Shaq Thompson, and I wrote about him. He had a really nice pass breakup on the sideline. And I think that, the math here with some of the injuries the Bills are facing, you got AJ Epinesa, who didn't practice today because of an ankle injury. You have Dorian Williams, who's dealing with a calf issue, and it looked like he was in some sort of boot. Yeah, some sort of boot over on the sideline. Depending on how long he's going to be out here, Shaq Thompson has looked to be flying around a little bit. Does he look like probably what it looked like in camp for the Panthers 2 or 3 years ago? I wouldn't go that far, but the fact that he's making play, that he's competitive, there's a room to grow for him. I think Balen Spector, who's kind of been in that Dorian Williams role so far, has looked good. But the question always with Balen is, can he stay healthy? There's some depth at that linebacker spot. And I think for Bills fans, we talked a lot going in. I did specifically about maybe Dorian pushing Matt Milano for that starting job. I think Matt Milano has showed, at least over the first 2 days, as long as he can stay healthy, feels really entrenched there. Mm-hmm. The injury might play in that as well, but him and Bernard have been out there. I feel like they're communicating really well. But when Shaq Thompson does get a first team rep, or he's been out there with the second and the third team, it's looked really good when he's been out there as well.
Hasn't looked out of place like some other veterans the Bills have brought in the linebacker position in previous years. So that, that's a testament to him. And again, Bobby Babich pre-practice talked about how Thompson is just like the utmost professional. Right after the Bills signed him, Babich was on vacation, but Thompson was like, "Hey, I know you're on vacation," but he was watching film and asking tons of questions. So when it came time for training camp to start, he knew Thompson was going to be ready to go, and he's looked the part so far. And obviously the Bills, from the Sean McDermott, from Brandon Beane, they have a lot of confidence in his veteran leadership, but it's also transitioned over to the field, which is huge for him and his, chances of getting a roster spot.
We're so excited about being at training camp. A lot of events happening across the 2 weeks that we're all out here at St. John Fisher University. We went out to Barbell last night. That was pretty cool. Our partner, Wingnuts, is going to be coming out on August 7th. We'll be at doing a pop-up event at Dorado on Park Avenue in Rochester. Get that on your calendar. We hope to have as many people come out as possible. We did it on a Sunday last year, changed it up a little bit this year, and we're doing it on a Thursday, which I think is it's kind of a party night. A lot of people like to get out, have a good time right before the weekend. So come on out August 7th, Dorado on Park Ave. Wingnuts will be coming up. They'll be cooking. We'll be talking Bills, wrapping up mini camp. And also, if you're a huge Shout podcast fan and you want to get some swagger, we got you covered. Head over to the link in the description here if you want to support the show and get decked out in our official gear. Check out the brand new Shout store for apparel, headwear, and much more. The link is in the description. You can head over there whenever you want.
Yeah, Sports Locker did a great job. Shout out to my cousin David, who played a big part in that. Everything you can imagine, from book bags to the clear bags that you bring to sporting events, hats, thermoses, coffee mugs, and so much more.
I want to transition to the offense. I thought, Josh Allen was pretty dialed in today. I think he has been since yesterday. We don't talk necessarily in these training camp practices anymore enough about Josh Allen, I feel like, because it's like this. He is the MVP, the reigning MVP. Right. He is, considered by most, if not the best quarterback in the NFL, the second best, the third best. It's almost like he's an afterthought when it comes to this evaluation period. But I do want to say, when we're out there, there's a dramatic drop off, even as good of a camp as Mike White is having when he's not in at quarterback. Oh, sure. And I think it hampers our ability to evaluate other players when those other quarterbacks are in, because Josh makes it so competitive at the first, second, and third level. He's putting the ball in play. Dalton Kincaid today, it was a tale of two plays. There's been a couple of these early, the first 3 days, where I feel like him and Josh just not on the same page, whether it be an overthrow, Kincaid gets kind of hung up in his route. Happened today early in practice where there was, about 20, 30 yards down the field. He comes back later, I think the next period, makes that really good play down the left sideline where they did have to have everything on the same page. Timing, ball placement, Kincaid getting separation. Those are the moments that I feel like you can build on. And I think the good news here with Dawson Knox nursing the injury. We've seen a lot of Zach Davidson. You can kind of pivot to that a little bit. I feel like Kincaid is getting the kind of reps that he needs to transition into the season. And you just got to hope, if you're the Bills fans, you got to stay healthy and get through an entire training camp and preseason and really use this momentum that you're building and then cast it into the season.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned with Josh Allen being a little bit overlooked because he is the MVP, and we just know what the expectations are at this point. But he's been just peppering the ball in these intermediate parts of the field, whether you're talking about lasers or passes with excellent touch. And he's putting them in spots where only his guys can really go up and get them. -1 or 2. He did airmail one today to Zach Davidson, a little bit too high for a very tall tight end. But he's been so unbelievable today, and that's going to benefit Dalton Kincaid with the rapport and the chemistry and continuing to build off of what they've done the first 2 years, as well as some of these other receivers that we can talk about here in a minute. But yeah, great opportunity to pivot over to Zach Davidson. Zach Davidson is another tight end on this roster where after the Bills draft Hawes, you say, okay, well, that kind of tells the story of the tight end room. You're going to have Kincaid, Knox, and Hawes as your blocking / special teams tight end. But man, you cannot forget about Zach Davidson. I think actually I went back and I counted. I said 4 to the insiders. I think I ended up with 5 catches between the 7-on-7s and 11-on-11 work, where he was just getting open early and often for Josh Allen, getting a lot of first team reps, looking the part for the Bills in terms of a guy that you could count on if there is an injury. So ideal world, the Bills probably would love to have him again on the practice squad. But if an injury were to take place this season, Matt, where you had to elevate him up, I think there'd be a lot of confidence that he could step up and contribute on a game-by-game basis.
Our buddy Pops Mafia calling you out in the comments. Uh-oh. You will never give up on Zach Davidson.
I will not. I'm telling you, I thought it was kind of over and done with after Hawes, but he makes plays. And this is what I like about training camp, because you're sprinkling guys in with the first team, and you're moving players around. And some of these guys are making the most of their opportunities, Davidson especially today.
Keon Coleman, he made a couple of plays today, and really high-level plays that I think need to be shouted out. And then there was the one play where I just feel like when your focus as a young player drops for even a moment, those kinds of plays happen, right? Like over the middle, could have been a huge explosive play, plenty of room to run, and he just tries to catch it with his chest, and it pops out. It was a little bit wet. You mentioned that it was raining, and it's a drop there. Then you put that next to that big time play that we talked about earlier, the big touchdown run that the Bills posted out. He's having like all of these moments, and he's young. Like I think people forget how young he is. I mean, I think he just turned, was it 22? Or is he about to turn 22?
Yeah.
He's a young player that I feel like is still going through so many firsts, and he's getting some great reps. I saw him off to the side. I think it was either today or yesterday. All the days are kind of going together at this point. Just talking to Josh Palmer about like, maybe something, I'm only guessing here, but like it looked like Keon was the one that was kind of showing him the ropes of maybe how to run a certain route for Josh, or, what they were doing in a certain drill. There's a benefit in that experience that he has in those moments, and flipped around, Josh Palmer's been in the league a long time. I'm sure he can learn a lot from him. And I felt like Palmer today, his route running was just so impressive. It stood out to Joe Brady. I kept seeing him kind of celebrate Josh Palmer, in the one-on-ones, with the way that he was, the crispness of his individual work was off the charts today. And we're not talking about a bunch of big time plays from Josh Palmer today, but like sprinkled in little plays, like those little ones that you don't talk about, those plays that keep drives moving. Mm-hmm. He was really locked in today. And I feel like with the pads coming on in maybe 2 or 3 days from now, I'm expecting Josh Palmer to have some really, really big days as we move through camp.
I thought he had an outstanding day today. Back shoulder fade, catch on one play from Josh Allen. Another play across the middle that went in the intermediate part of the field for a good size gain. He drew what would have been a pass interference penalty against Christian Benford on one rep, according to a ref that was on the field telling them after the play. So 3 big plays right there. He almost made the catch of maybe the back shoulder catch was the catch of the day, but he almost made another spectacular grab, which I thought was going to be a one-handed grab if he made it, but Cam Lewis came in, made a nice play on the ball. So a great day for Josh Palmer. As for Keon Coleman, I thought there was more good than bad. That drop in the middle of the field, I mean, it was right where it needed to be, and he dropped that. But going back to something Babbage said today, it was more so about Max Harrison. He said, we're not going to ride the roller coaster. you can't, with one play does not dictate an entire day or an entire training camp for a player. It's the sum of the parts. And overall, after Keon Coleman's first day, I really think that he has been on an upward trajectory.
That to me is the biggest thing about training camp. Like, we have these daily shows to bring you the reaction to all of the different plays that happen over the course. But the real point of this is to take the totality of it all and then really kind of see where we're at going into the season. And so far through 3 days, if we take the entire body of work, I think it's been a strong start for Keon Coleman. I think the group as a whole at wide receiver, like Curtis Samuel has had some moments. I think Tyrell Shavers got worked in a little bit today with the first team. In the short passing game, it's amazing. Tyrell Shavers is so long. He feels like a rangy wide receiver, but he does a lot of damage in the short game. And that's something that I'm going to be watching for in the preseason. I want to get to Cam Lewis in a minute. You just mentioned him. Before we transition out of this group, I got to talk about one play from Elijah Moore today that just had my jaw on the floor. It was so impressive. He was working one-on-one with Cam Lewis, who was having one of the best practices for a defensive back outside of Christian Benford on that first day that we've seen. And Elijah Moore had such suddenness at the line of scrimmage. They were actually, during individual, they were working on this, where you kind of do a little bit of a double move, you fake into the inside and then cut it out to the outside really quick. And he put this move on Cam Lewis, and it almost was like from one of those memes where you have the guy kind of like dropped in the basketball memes, like when you cross somebody over. Cam Lewis was kind of just like stumbling backwards off the play, and Elijah Moore makes the easy catch. It wasn't some big spectacular explosive. It was just in the short game, and the footwork was so sensational. I think, again, don't want to be hyperbolic. We'll see how things look over the next 2 to 3 weeks as the games come and we can evaluate a little bit more. But Elijah Moore is making this team. He's going to have a significant role on this team, I think. And there's an opportunity for him to build a rapport with Josh Allen for that thing to kind of ascend over the course of the season, I think.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what it looks like when the pads come on. That's going to be the ultimate test for him. But the speed's on display, the footwork's on display. There's a lot to like about his game. Made some impressive grabs again today. Shout out Caden Prather as well, who made a nice grab, getting 2 feet down along the sideline as well for another, young player that popped at one point for me today.
That was concise. Yeah. I was waiting to see how long you were going to go there, but that's a perfect transition point for me to get to Cam Lewis, who, listen, I am a card-carrying member of the Cam Lewis fan club, UB grad. I've been a stan of this guy for a couple of years. Today felt like somebody asked, Jim Payne asked, one of our YouTube subscribers, is the no sheet bed for Ryan? I am going to put you on the no sheet bed. You're not getting my sheets. By the way, I have a nice sheet situation. I forgot my pillow. I had to go out and buy a pillow. I forget a pillow every other year. It's brutal. But no, the no sheet bed is just where I keep a bunch of stuff. Ryan's staying in a hotel. You're too bougie for the dorm life.
Yeah, I've got a nice little suite, has its own little kitchen. It's a nice little stay here in Rochester, New York for the weekend.
So no spider webs?
No spider webs in the corner.
Can I show him the spider webs? I'm going to show him the
spider webs. Oh, yeah, you show him the spider webs.
Can you talk us through the spider webs here, actually?
Yeah, so spider webs have really been doing their work over the last few months, really getting ready for training camp, dominating the left-hand corner of the windowsill. You can see that some spiders were really grinding here. I don't know if it shows up in the light there that well. That's crazy. Really, there was a spider here doing his 1/11th to try to make this training camp roster. It just kind of, he unplugged it. Hopefully they can still hear us at least. If so, I'm going to pivot here a little bit from spider webs to tangling up offensive players with Cam Lewis. Cam Lewis had a really nice day today, man. I know you're going to talk about it here in a minute, but Cam Lewis shows why he's so important to this team. The versatility, really like his game, and the way that he's playing now, I think is where the Bills want Jordan Hancock to eventually be. Babbage talked about Hancock today in terms of trying to limit what he does in terms of his role on this defense, and they're putting a lot on his plate because there's a lot of different hats they want him to eventually wear. But when it comes to Cam Lewis, there it is. Lewis is a case of a guy that the more that you can do, the better that it is.
The worst part about that, by the way, you were eating that microphone again, dude. was too hard. It was too much. It was too much.
Sorry,
Here's the thing. Like, you needed to see the spider webs. If you got a glimpse of it, I'm glad.
Take a photo.
I'll take a photo of it and we'll post it. There you go. But here's the thing. Like, I'm okay with it. Like, if my wife came in here and saw the spider webs there, it would be an immediate exit. I can live with it because I just feel like it's just part of the experience. You know, they're moving in too, right? In the dorms for the summer. Anyway,
That's right.
All right, Cam Lewis. Let's get to him. The play of the day for Lewis was, like Brian mentioned, a one-on-one against Josh Palmer. And that's usually advantage wide receiver in that spot because he had to run from behind Palmer, but he stayed step for step with him. He was competitive all day. I think he had 2 pass breakups, including that one. And again, this is a reminder that David said we just got it on the rails. Speaking of which, shout is brought to you by Amtrak. Nailed it.
Off the rails, onto the webs. That's all we are doing.
Now it's off the rails. That's completely off the rails. The thing with Cam Lewis is we've kind of, as a community, a bit opened the door to his roster spot being up for grabs. You go out and you draft Jordan Hancock, but it's a 5th round draft pick. There's no guarantee that guy's got to make the roster. I mean, Javon Solomon did last year. 2 years ago, I think it was Justin Shorter who did. Maybe it was 3 years ago, Justin Shorter did. I'm not sitting here and saying that Cam Lewis is definitively going to make the roster, but whoever's going to unseat him is the backup corner. I was talking about this with Josh Reed and John Scott. I think he would start as a slot corner on some teams around the NFL.
I agree with that.
And so I think if you put that into perspective and the fact that, Taron Johnson has been very healthy over the last couple of seasons, if he were to be out, to vault a rookie into that role, or even a Jamarcus Ingram who plays multiple roles, hasn't played a ton of slot corner for them, I feel like Cam Lewis, he's almost built for that role.
I agree with that completely, Matt. Every opportunity he's had in this league with the Bills, he has made plays. He has shown that he can be a special team standout. He can contribute on defense when an injury pops up. His tale from UDFA, feel-good story out of UB, to where he is now, where this is a guy that ultimately could end up playing in this league for 8-10 years, in my opinion. It's a testament to the way that he's taken on these different roles with the Bills, but also improves steadily year over year for Buffalo. So a big-time testament to, I think, smarts. I think that, he's an athlete. Don't get me wrong. He has a lot of athletic ability, but the players that last in this league, Matt, are the guys that can take what the coaching staff gives them and absorb it and use that knowledge to get better year in, year out. And that's what Cam Lewis does. Last thing, best Webb in Matt Parrino's locker room since the Bills had Joe Webb on this roster. That's not a dad joke. That's just a Webb reference.
Can you do it one more time for me?
No, because I'm afraid of what you're going to do.
Can you say it one more time?
Oh, best Webb on the Bills since Joe Webb was on the Bills roster.
You nailed that. That was really impressive. You just thinking on the fly. Yes, the way the mind works is really impressive. All right, let's get into some of those one-on-ones really quick before we get out of here. We do got to keep this to about 30. We're almost there. Getaway day. Got to get back. Little man's got a baseball game tonight. You can read our observations. They're up at the website right now, Syracuse.com, NewYorkUpstate.com. What did you think was the most impressive one-on-one? You have them written down in your notes here.
I don't know.
For me, again, I go back to Palmer. Moore is just like, it's almost like unfair to have to deal with Moore. KJ Hamler had a really good rep, but then he seemed to kind of come up limping a little bit. So we'll watch for him Sunday. What from your notes, you kind of had all the one-on-ones written down, was the most impressive?
Yeah, actually, I wrote down Hamler dusts Hairston, so that might have been the one for me. That one really stood out for me. Palmer had a good win against Hairston as well, because Hairston had good coverage. For a defensive win, I thought a really nice play by Dorian Strong. We've had some people asking. He knocked the ball out from Christian Wilkerson on a play. I think it would have gone for a reception, then to a fumble out of bounds, but good awareness by the young cornerback to make a play on the ball after the fact or in that moment. So, and then I also had more dusts Ingram. So I apparently like to use the word dust a lot when it comes to these plays, but that's another nice one. Elijah Moore on Jamarcus Ingram.
One more thing. Somebody's mentioning David said that's just an awful joke. Dude, David has got the gloves off today, dude. Like he
We
is.
appreciate David.
We love David. I mean, he's made us a couple designs and everything like that. Nothing happened to Taron Johnson. I see somebody. We were saying in a world where Taron was injured, Cam Lewis would be a potential option to play for him. That's the only thing. Everybody needs to just relax. We'll knock on some wood for you. It's all good. Khalil Shakir. I mean, again, he's almost in the same bucket as Allen. He's been here for so long.
Yep.
He's so consistent. He makes plays every single day, it seems like. And today he made a couple of big time plays. A catch on the right sideline where I think I heard somebody say, it might have been somebody in the media, is like, that's just so unfair. Because Taron Johnson had amazing coverage on him, and it just didn't matter. And that's how good Khalil Shakir is.
Shakir is just the ultimate weapon for Josh Allen in that he finds ways to catch the ball no matter how tight the window is or how much, guys are draped on him. He just comes up with the ball. He gets open sometimes, but even on those tough catches, he's so dependable. He is such an asset for this offense where, he might not ever be a national household name, but in Buffalo, he sure is.
It is a national, I shouldn't say national. It's a household name in Jamestown, New York. It is the National Comedy Center. I messed that up. I had a great transition there, and it just all got jumbled. So
day 3 of training camp.
Day 3 of training camp. Don't ride the roller coaster, Talbot. Thank you so much. The National Comedy Center is the perfect day trip or weekend trip for the entire family. One of the most interactive museums in the country. This is a museum experience like no other. Ryan Talbot and I were out there a couple weeks ago. We were singing Mock Yeah from Dumb and Dumber. We were going through all the interactive exhibits at the Jamestown National Comedy Center. It was amazing.
Unbelievable spot. I can't say enough about it. Interactive experiences with like a 3D version of Jimmy Fallon. Props where you can put like a whoopee cushion on a screen and it shows you movies and TV shows where it's been displayed before. Awesome time there. Go check it out.
That's my next bird. Yeah. Nailed it in the comments. Right. I love it. Here's the other piece. Next episode, my son has a whoopee cushion. Got it at one of those little kid parties. Gonna hit you with that during the show. The only thing is, how would I execute that? Because you're sitting.
Right.
So like I'd have to have it on the show. So I'll have to
I move my legs sometimes too. If you put it right in, like somewhere down
there, or I could say, "Are you okay?" Have you move over and then like step on one maybe. Like I could pull something like that off. All right. That's it for the hijinks from the dorm room. For Ryan Talbot, I'm Matt Parrino. We'll be back on Sunday. Don't miss it. Read our observations over at the website. See you then. Take care, everybody.